How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Hot Takes with Holmes here on Radio Free Radford. My name is Blake Holmes, and I'm going to be by myself today. My co-host Isaiah Adair, he couldn't make it for the broadcast today, so stick around with me as I'm going to be talking about the recent action around the NBA, NCAA basketball, and my predictions for the upcoming football action this weekend. To start it off, like we always do, I'm going to be discussing NCAA basketball. The top 5 this week in the nation is still at number 1, the Villanova Wildcats at 18-1, the Virginia Cavaliers at 18-1 as well, the Purdue Boilermakers actually having a better record or more wins, than Virginia and Villanova, but one more loss at number 3. The Duke Blue Devils coming in at number 4, and the number 5 Kansas Jayhawks at 16-3. And that is right. There are no more undefeated teams in D1 basketball, and it looks like Villanova is going to start running away with the title if they can continue their impressive play. Zion Williamson, the number 2 recruit in the ESPN 100, has recently decided to take and sign with the Duke Blue Devils, which means the top 3 players in the ESPN 100, number 1 being R.J. Barrett, number 2 Zion Williamson, and number 3 Cam Reddish, all joining the Blue Devils next year. So that's going to be a very stacked recruiting class for Coach K to get his hands on. And will they be one and dones? We don't know. The question is, how well will they play next year? A good example would be, does one of them turn into a Grayson Allen? Does one of them, or are they like the many others, like maybe Marvin Bagley will be this year? That is yet to be decided. It'll all depend on how they play next year. But as of right now, there is no reason to say that the Duke Blue Devils do not have a bad chance at the NCAA championship with these 3 superstars coming into this class. So are there any, or what contenders can I say that I think will seriously and completely compete for an NCAA championship this year in the Big Dance? Honestly, I think that my pick right now is probably going to be either Villanova or Duke, purely because Duke has that star in Marvin Bagley and that senior leader, that guy that's going to get you hyped, that's going to get that team ready to go by the time March Madness comes around. The guy who's played in it 3 times already, that's Grayson Allen. And Villanova just plays a certain team basketball that is really unrivaled. And if they can keep playing the way they have been, I understand they're not really in a Power 5, they're in a mid-major conference. However, if they can keep this going, if they can fully put the puzzle together by the time March Madness and the conference championships finally come out, this Villanova team has a chance to go on a run like they did 2 years ago. So a big topic here on campus lately is Radford basketball. They are leading the Big South still. Last week they were, but they stumbled a little bit, losing to Campbell 59-56 on the road. Chris Clemens for Campbell having a pretty big game and knocking them off on their home floor. Tonight, the Radford University basketball team travels to High Point to take them on, and they look to increase their lead. As of right now, they have a 1-game lead over the Big South, although they have beaten UNC Asheville, who is in the 2nd spot, so technically it is a 2-game, it seems like. And the leading scorer for the Highlanders is Ed Polite Jr. with 13.5 points per game so far. Now, this is actually a reason why they're buzzing. In Radford's basketball history, they have made the NCAA tournament, the men's basketball team that is, has made the NCAA tournament 2 times. The first time in 1998, losing to the Duke Blue Devils 99-63, and the second time they made it in 2009, losing to UNC 101-58. So that means they are 0-2 in their history, and they have not made it back to the tournament since then. They've lost in the Big South tournament a few times ever since then, and they're in a good spot right now. If they can find a way to, now if you win the regular season, if you lead the Big South after the regular season, that doesn't mean you make the tournament. What that does mean, though, is that the Big South tournament, so every team in the Big South, that championship, that tournament will run through the Denman Center. So the way it works is the first rounds, the lower half, one team will host a playoff game after that first round, it's all here at Radford. So they're in a good spot right now, and if they can find a way to continue leading the Big South and eventually making a run in the tournament, which I believe they can, especially if it's going to be in the Deadman where they are undefeated this year, they have a shot to make it to the big dance this year. And in fact, Joe Lunardi in Bracketology, a popular NCAA tournament prediction show that goes around this time, actually predicts Radford to play in the first round of the big dance as a number 16 seed against, you guessed it, the Duke Blue Devils in Charlotte. I've been talking a lot about Duke on this show. But here's the thing. In the history of NCAA, there has never been a number 16 seed to knock off a number 1 seed. So if Radford made it, would they knock them off? Probably not. But it's always worth asking, and we're just, us here at Hot Takes with Holmes, here at Radio Free Radford, we're just really hoping that they can find a way into the tournament at all. That would be such a huge boost here on campus, and it would be just a very rare sight that's only been done 2 times before that here. Moving on to the NBA, major news in Milwaukee. Jason Kidd, the head coach, a future Hall of Famer as a player, was recently let go by the Bucks. However, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, their superstar, actually, it has been announced that he called 15 minutes before Jason Kidd received his announcement about being let go by the Milwaukee Bucks, asking if there was anything he could do to save his job. Now, Giannis, it's obvious that he really had a fan, or he was really a fan of Jason Kidd, and I don't know what this is going to do for the Bucks moving forward. We don't know what if their assistant coach is going to be able to step up and lead them to the playoffs at this point. I think they can at least get to the playoffs now. Making a run in the playoffs, I really don't know. But it's obvious that Jason Kidd might have been a player's coach, because Giannis, if he's calling 15 minutes beforehand trying to save his job, that means there was obviously something about Jason Kidd that Giannis was a fan of. And we'll have to see what Milwaukee turns into because of this later on in the year. So, another story, major news in the NBA last night. The Cleveland Cavaliers traveling to San Antonio, and that was a good game. It's a good game in general anyways. It was made even better by the fact that LeBron James became the youngest player to ever score 30,000 career points in the NBA. As I say, it took him 15 seasons. He is the youngest player to ever do it, joining Elite Company, one of only 6 players to ever do this. And they made a mid-range jumper to go ahead. He needed 7 points to do it, and the Cavs have been struggling lately, but at least that's a little bit of a positive point in this storm that they've been having, and they'll look to build off of that and potentially improve under the recent circumstances. Kawhi Leonard, also on the other side of the story, Kawhi Leonard has been rehabbing an ankle injury ever since last postseason, in which he had a controversial play with Zaza Pachulia. Zaza Pachulia made a closeout, and a lot of people saying that was dirty. A lot of people say it wasn't, but the fact remains, Kawhi Leonard came down and on his ankle awkwardly, and he's been basically rehabbing that ever since that happened, including this season. He came back for a short stint, but the Spurs eventually decided no, it wasn't his time. He was going to continue going until he was 100%. And Kawhi Leonard apparently, or reportedly, has had issues with this, even going as far as to say, according to some reports, that he wants out of San Antonio because he feels that he's being held back for this. This is a major deal. If LaMarcus Aldridge requested a trade and the Spurs kept him, I think they keep Kawhi. They don't trade Kawhi. Watch and see how relationships turn with him, though. As in, if there is free agency coming up at some point, or even if there is a deal that San Antonio feels is good enough, Kawhi may be on his way out. I don't think so, but it is very well possible. Especially, I think it is a criminal. I get you're wanting to make him get to 100%. I completely understand and think that's actually a good idea. You have a top 5 player in the NBA. You need to let him get back to 100%. But at the same time, when your team's in the middle of I believe last time I checked they were the 3 seed in the West. You have a chance to gain some ground in the Western Conference, and you want to get your star player back out there, getting ready for the playoff times, and yet you're just not doing that. I don't agree with that, but obviously the Spurs may know what they're doing. They got Greg Popovich at the helm, so they got to have some idea, and it's Kawhi apparently wants out. We'll have to see what comes from that. I don't believe he'll be traded. The Cleveland Cavaliers held a meeting, actually a team meeting, because as I stated, they've been struggling lately. In fact, I saw a statistic earlier. They have the 7th best record in the NBA right now, but against the 6 teams with better records, they are in fact 1-7 against them. Not a very good record, especially when you get to playoff time. I get it. It's LeBron James. LeBron James playoff mode is one of the greatest players of all time, if not the best player of all time. I completely understand that. I think the Cavs still have time to figure it out. They have a chance to potentially make a run still to get back to the NBA Finals against probably the Golden State Warriors once again. But the fact remains, they held a meeting to discuss saying that Kevin Love might have been a major factor in these struggles. I don't believe it's a one-person thing. I believe it is just an entire team. The only player really that's been way consistent for them as of late has been LeBron. And whenever you have a player like LeBron, you need to let him carry your team a little bit. But at the same time, you can't let one person carry your entire team and expect it to be great all the time. Isaiah Thomas has been playing pretty well ever since coming back from his injury, but there's only so much that Isaiah Thomas can do. Same thing with LeBron. And don't be shocked, Kevin Love, if they start fielding offers for him and potentially they move him, because you better believe Cleveland's trying to do everything they can to keep LeBron in Cleveland next offseason, because he does have a chance to leave in free agency. But you better believe they're going to do everything in their power to keep him in Cleveland. And if that means Kevin Love needs to be taken off the team, then you better believe they'll probably do it. So, will Kevin Love be traded? Once again, these are all things I don't believe he will. I think he's done a good bit for that organization. He plays a pretty good 4 right now, and I think it's just a bump in the road. The Cleveland Cavaliers will be back by the playoff times, and I think they still will we'll probably see the Cavs and Warriors for the 4th time in a row, now I will say this actually, I believe the Boston Celtics will probably knock off the Cavs this year, but when it comes to getting into the playoffs and getting into a deep run, the Cavs will be up to par to do that. Damian Lillard, the first-time All-Star this year, requested an official meeting with the Blazers' official owner to talk about the future of the franchise. Damian Lillard has been very loyal to the organization ever since he came to the NBA, tweeting, saying several times he was not going to go somewhere just to chase a ring. He wasn't going to do what a lot of people classify as a Kevin Durant move. He was loyal. He wanted to win a championship in Portland. Now the question is, does this meeting line up with that? Does he believe that the Portland Trailblazers will ever compete for a title with him in Portland? It's one thing, and now what he's done with these Portland teams, it's impressive to get in the second round with the teams he's had. But when you've got a team like the Golden State Warriors going on right now, a team like the Portland Trailblazers are not going to compete with them. Not many teams will, if any. So it's possible that he could be going to the owner to talk about potential moves to make the team better, or even just saying, listen, what do you think the direction of this team will be? And if he doesn't like it, then Damian Lillard might leave Portland. Even though like I said, he's been a very loyal player to them. He's been a superstar for them. In fact, it's a crime to me at this point that this is his first time making it to the All-Star game. But at the end of the day, Damian Lillard has to do what's right for his career. And honestly, I feel like if the right opportunity arises, he needs to get out of Portland. Not saying, I have respect for Portland. There are some players I have issues with, but for the Portland Trailblazers as a whole, I have respect for them. But at the same time, they're not really going to compete. It's the same thing with, 28 out of the 30 teams probably won't compete this year. And those 2 teams will probably be the Golden State. I'll say 26, maybe, because I don't think that anyone's going to compete with the Warriors or the Rockets in the West. especially the Warriors. And if the right situation were to arise and Damian Lillard could go make a super team, I don't know how you really turn that down unless he's just that loyal, which that's possible. But I think that if he finds the right situation, Damian Lillard needs to get out of Portland. So a new segment here on Hot Takes with Holmes that I've decided to plug in this week is our performer or performers of the week. So we take some of the bigger performances, especially later on in the week, like some of the bigger performances that have happened, and we kind of shout them out, I guess. The first one is Andrew Wiggins. He dropped 40 points, 6 rebounds, had a plus 11 plus-minus rating, and a win against the Clippers on their home floor is a new season high for Wiggins. It's not his career high, but it is a new season high for the young forward from Canada. And also another Canadian, Jamal Murray, for the Nuggets, dropping 38, 6 and 5, a new career high, 6 assists and 5 rebounds for the Nuggets in a win against the Portland Trail Blazers. And fun fact, he is one of, I believe, 7 or 8 players in NBA history to ever have a stat line like that in their first 2 years. So, is he looking up for the Nuggets? Was it just a fluke? I don't know. It was a fun game to watch, especially. And Andrew Wiggins, we know he's going to be a pretty. At worst, he'll be a decent player for the rest of his career. At the best case scenario, he could be a top 5 small forward in the league, I think. And I believe that the Minnesota Timberwolves will make the playoffs this year. If the Nuggets want to make the playoffs, they got to have more games like this from Jamal Murray, and they got to have more games like this from Nikola Jokic. There's just got to be, the cards have to fall the right way for the Nuggets. I think the T-Wolves will be fine. So, unfortunately, as I stated, my co-host Isaiah Adair is not here. So, instead of for the All-Star draft, what we were originally going to do is I was going to be LeBron, he was going to be Stephen Curry. We were going to pick that way. I'm going to be doing both sides here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically go through a mock draft, but only pick the starters. So the first pick would be LeBron James in this draft, and I think the first pick would be obvious out of the starters to get, and it would be Kevin Durant. You take potentially the two best players in the NBA, you put them on the same team. That'll be fun to watch, and it'll give KD having to go against Steph for the first time in 2 years, and that would be interesting. So with Kevin Durant gone, if you're Stephen Curry for the second pick, you take Giannis Antetokounmpo. You take the Greek Freak. You need a big man, and as he humorously hinted at last year, Giannis Antetokounmpo dunked on Curry, and then another time he had a fast break and Curry was by himself, to which he just laid down the floor and let Giannis dunk. He didn't want anything to do with it, and he humorously pointed out, saying that Giannis dunked on me last year, so I think I might pick him this year, so that way he can't do that to me again. And I think that's where they go, and I think that's the right choice. Giannis is a one-of-a-kind player, and he can really play any position on the floor. And for an all-star game standards, that's what you want on your team. So going back to LeBron, if I'm picking my next pick, you've already got Kevin Durant and LeBron. That's going to be your 3 and 4 most likely. So you could go big, but my money is going on James Harden. You take the Houston guard, MVP finalist the past 2 years, and a guy who can light up the scoreboard real quick. You reunite Kevin Durant and James Harden back in from the old Thunder days, and I believe that's the start of your backcourt. And in fact, he could actually also play the 1 if you wanted him to. So that's also something to look out for. Curry, it goes back to him. I think you have to go big once again, and if I'm going big, I'm going Anthony Davis out of New Orleans. Anthony Davis is just, he's a freak of nature. He's a stretch big. Personally, I think he's top 3 if you want to put him in either power forward or center. I think he's top 3 in both. That's how good I think Anthony Davis is. He's really shown that this year, had multiple just monster games, and leading to this all-star starter voting. And I think pairing him with Stephen Curry and Giannis, that could be a fun instance, which Anthony Davis would grab more. Steph Curry's going to be shooting threes. We all know that's going to happen in the All-Star game with Anthony Davis grabbing on the boards and Steph even delivering a pass or two every once in a while. That could be a fun instance to watch, and I believe that's where they would go with that pick. So that's 3 down for each team. LeBron having the next pick, I think he goes big once again, and this time I believe he goes Boogie Cousins. Boogie, like AD, another stretch big, another fantastic player. In fact, same team, and I think that LeBron goes big. LeBron gets his 5, and it's going to be AD versus Boogie down low. It's going to be teammate versus teammate. Same thing. They're going to try to split the teammates. I think it's going to be Kevin Durant taking on Curry's team, and it's also going to be AD and Boogie on different sides. LeBron gets his 5, and the only position he's really missing at this point is a guard of some sort going to Curry. At the same time, I think this is where, let's see, you would if you're Curry, you would have Giannis, you would have AD, you would have yourself, and I think you force LeBron James to make a choice, and you pick Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's a young, upstart player. Humorously, he's a fan favorite because it has been reported that Rihanna told him last year when he tried to get a date with her, hit me up again when you were an all-star. And Joel basically made a comment after he found out saying that he was on to the next one, that he didn't really want to focus on that anymore. Well, he's an all-star starter this year, and I think that Stephen Curry picks Joel Embiid for one reason only. One, you can get a 5, and you can actually you could either put him at the 4 or Anthony Davis at the 4, and that could be an interesting matchup with Kevin Durant and Boogie Cousins. And you make LeBron do a choice. Does LeBron then go after DeMar DeRozan, or does he reunite the old teammate in Kyrie Irving? And I think he picks DeMar DeRozan. I think LeBron goes DeMar DeRozan, athletic guy who's probably, he could dunk. He's not necessarily the best shooter, but he's an athletic freak. He'll have several highlight dunks in this game, and I think that he avoids picking Kyrie. And plus, for the storyline, I think he lets Curry. Let's have a backcourt of Steph Curry and Kyrie. I feel like that would be fun to watch, and I believe that's actually what's going to happen. Most notably, again, when the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA Finals in 2016, Kyrie and Curry battled all finals with Kyrie having the last laugh in Game 7 in Oracle. So it'll be interesting, and it'd be fun. I think it'd be a very fun game to watch, to have them both in the same backcourt against LeBron. So I think that's what the starter is going to be. I'm not saying it was going to happen. I believe that's how it should be. And the reserves, obviously they will draft these as well, but they are worth noting. The reserves were not voted in. They were decided by the NBA and the coaches and players. And the reserves go LaMarcus Aldridge from the San Antonio Spurs, Bradley Beal from the Washington Wizards, Jimmy Butler from the Minnesota Timberwolves, Draymond Green from the Warriors, Al Horford from the Boston Celtics, Damian Lillard from the Blazers, Kevin Love from the Cavs, Kyle Lowry from the Toronto Raptors, Victor Oladipo from the Indiana Pacers, Kristaps Porzingis from the New York Knicks, Klay Thompson from the Warriors, Karl Anthony Towns from the Timberwolves, John Wall from the Wizards, and Russell Westbrook from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Games last night, Sacramento traveled to Orlando, and the Kings took out the Magic 105-99 to snap a losing streak that they were on. The Brooklyn Nets lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder in Oklahoma City 109-108. Russell Westbrook hits a game-winning layup at the end of the game, and the Thunder hold on to win by 1. The Cleveland Cavaliers, albeit a big night, LeBron gets his 30,000th point, still struggling, losing 114-102 to the San Antonio Spurs. The Golden State Warriors took care of business in Oracle Arena, knocking off the New York Knicks 123-112. And another game that almost was a game winner, the Los Angeles Lakers knocking off the Boston Celtics in the Staples Center. Celtics almost hit a 3 at the buzzer to go in to win the game, but the Lakers were able to hold on. So the hypothetical for the day, the biggest trade or the most impactful trade that's possible that could happen at the deadline. There have been a lot of star players being linked to trade offers. Once again, Kawhi, Kevin Love. A lot of people are theorizing that he could be traded. Damian Lillard, but there are some others that may not be. And now the question is also: is it very possible that it could happen? And are they really the most impactful? So I've got two in my head that I can think of. One of them is DeAndre Jordan to the Portland Trail Blazers. I believe I get it. They have a young player that could be good in Yusuf Nurkic, but I just have this feeling that meeting that Damian Lillard had has to do with more than just, what's going to happen. I think in my mind, he might have actually went to the Blazers owner and was lobbying to get DeAndre Jordan. So DeAndre Jordan to the Blazers, I don't really know what they would give up, but I think that's a possibility that could happen. And another one, call me a homer, but I would say Kemba Walker to the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets have been intrigued by Kemba or seem to have been intrigued for a good while now. And with him finally being linked to trade offers, don't think that Denver will just let that go unnoticed. They have young talent. They have draft picks. They have exactly what the Hornets would be looking for. Now, the question is, do they give it up? I think it's possible. And I believe that if Kemba were to be traded, then that would be as an ideal of a spot for him as any other than Charlotte. So there isn't a whole lot to talk about with the NFL as of right now. We just got done with conference championships, and we'll be tuning in next week at 3. We're going to have the entire show is going to be dedicated to the Super Bowl. It's going to be a Super Bowl preview. So basically, I'm just going to recap the conference championship games, starting off with the first game, the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots. This was a close game. Jags led for a majority of this game, but as I've stated to several friends and several other people that watch these games, I've basically come to the conclusion and said, if the fourth quarter starts and the Patriots are down by less than 20 points, I'm taking the Patriots to win the game. Until they prove to me that they're not, I'll take my odds, because it seems like every time that happens, Tom Brady's manufacturing some kind of comeback and keeping them in the game like that. So, and this was no different here. They came back from down, I believe it was 17 in the fourth quarter to knock off the Jags, a red-hot Jags team too. This was of no fault, though, to the quarterback of the Jags, Blake Bortles. He was just a man on a mission with 23 of 36 passes, 293 passing yards, and a touchdown. It was a real statement performance, because a lot of people, including myself, have doubted him, especially in this season. And you have an up and down postseason like he did. In the wild card round, they hosted the Buffalo Bills, and he had more rushing yards than he did passing yards. And in fact, he was their team's leading rusher. So and then against the Steelers next week, he lit it up. Same thing here. And to know that you've had an inconsistent postseason, but you still got your team here, and to know that you fell just short after an insane touchdown grab by Danny Amendola to take the lead in this game. In fact, there was a camera frame, there was a shot at the end of the game that showed Blake Bortles, and there were some tears going down his face, and people were criticizing him for that. And I'm just thinking, you have been called a bad quarterback all year long. There has even been, Blake Bortles made a comment that said, and it was completely taken out of context. The person said, what do you think? How do you deal with criticism? And Blake Bortles responded with, I don't really think about it. People think LeBron James sucks every once in a while, so of course they're going to think I suck as well. Obviously, if you look in the context, he is not comparing himself to LeBron and his greatness. He's not doing that at all. What he essentially is saying, he's saying, one of the greatest players in a sport to ever play the sport gets comments every single day, every single time he steps out from another person saying that he's not good. He's not a good player. So if one of the best players to ever do it is getting comments like that, then it's accepted and it's expected that he's going to get comments like that. At no point is he comparing himself to LeBron James, but yet that's how a lot of people took it. And so he got a lot of criticism for that. And so to know that you've been criticized all year long for every little move that you do, saying your defense carried you, and to go into this game and have a performance like he did, just lighting up. I get it, the Jags defense wasn't very good, but at the same time, the Pats defense wasn't very good. But at the same time, when you're having a performance like he did in an environment like he was in, not many teams can go into Foxborough and knock off the Patriots in the playoffs, especially. In fact, it seems the only team that can even come close to doing it is Baltimore. They've done it twice in the Brady era, it seems like. But that's the only team really that you can consider that can be the Patriots' kryptonite in the playoffs, except for the Giants in the Super Bowl. But to go into Foxborough, to go in Gillette Stadium, a place that very few teams can succeed in, to have the game he did, and it come down to just an insane drive by Tom Brady, who had 12 stitches in his hands a few days before the game, to have that be taken away from you in a flash, and like I said, just have your chances at a Super Bowl, your chances at redemption be taken away from you like that, and you have went toe-to-toe with the greatest quarterback to ever play the game of football, and you fell just short, would you not cry? I don't understand and besides, that's showing emotion on a football field. I don't get, a player should never be criticized, and a player should never be ostracized, should be made fun of or criticized for showing emotion, and showing emotion in a decent and not disrespectful way. And I think Blake Bortles was doing that. Same thing, Leonard Fournette was also crying on the sidelines. But Bortles, now, and his performance also brings to the question, do the Jacksonville Jaguars keep him in the starting role for next season? With rumors of Kirk Cousins leaving Washington and other quarterbacks being available, the ultimate question remains, do they go after one of them and kind of leave Blake Bortles in the past? Like, hey, thanks for getting us to the AFC Championship, but we're actually going to go in this direction. I don't know what you can say. There is not a quarterback that's going to be available to them this season that would have won that game for them if Bortles couldn't do it, because Bortles had a good performance. I get it, that last drive, but at the same time, you couldn't fault Blake Bortles for that loss. There was no way, and I refuse to believe that it was his fault they lost that game. It was just an insane and clutch performance by, as I stated, the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, to knock them out of the playoffs. And so, at the same time, do you penalize him for losing that game, for losing a game that a lot of people expected them to lose against a team as good as the Patriots? No. I don't know what to think, because Jacksonville at times looked a little inconsistent. They would be on fire, then it'd go cold, and on fire, and then cold, and it all depended on Blake Bortles. But you can call it bold, you may not. I think they keep Blake Bortles. He's proven, to me especially in this postseason, that he's capable of being a game-managing quarterback on a team with a defense as good as Jacksonville has. The motto remains true. Defense wins championships, unless you're the New England Patriots, of course. But defense wins championships. The Jacksonville Jaguars, in my opinion, have the best offense best defense in the NFL. And even then, with the defense wins championships, whenever the Seattle Seahawks, the Patriots knocked them off, it took an interception on a boneheaded call by Pete Carroll by Malcolm Butler to win that game. So defense wins championships. Jacksonville has a fantastic defense. Their offense needs a little bit of work, but also got to remember, their leading receiver was out this year, Allen Robinson. Leonard Fournette's just getting started. You keep Blake Bortles in this offense, you keep running the way it is, Jacksonville could be some trouble, could give a lot of teams some trouble next year. And I don't think you really need to do a whole lot to change that, especially at the quarterback position. When you've got, as I stated, Blake Bortles is a game-managing quarterback, and I feel like he could continue to lead the team into good situations as long as he doesn't just drop off from this postseason. In fact, if I'm Blake Bortles, this postseason fires me up. Knowing that I was able to do what I did to the two teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots, and barely miss out in the playoffs, use that as a fire, use that as motivation to come back even stronger next year. The other championship game, the NFC Championship game, a game a lot of people did not expect. The Philadelphia Eagles, with Nick Foles starting, absolutely blew the Vikings out of the water in this game. Like, it wasn't even close. A lot of people, including myself, were predicting the Vikings to win and go to Minneapolis as the first team to ever host a Super Bowl with their team in it. What we got was not of the sort at all. The Eagles blew it out of the water and won 38-7. Nick Foles was, and people forget with Nick Foles, he was a Pro Bowler. He had a season where he threw 27 touchdowns and 2 picks, but we don't really see that. We consider his most recent action in St. Louis, in L.A., where he was not good at all under Jeff Fisher, which not a lot of quarterbacks are that great under Jeff Fisher. But Foles' stats, 26 of 33, 352 passing yards, and 3 touchdown passes. Blake Bortles had a great game. Nick Foles just had a career game. And he's going to have to do this. He's going to have to do that again in the Super Bowl if they want any chance to keep up with the Patriots. They've been counted underdogs all season long, or all playoff long, ever since Carson Wentz got taken out. I get that. I'm still putting them as an underdog against a big underdog against the Pats, because Nick Foles has got to get it going. You got to get the running game. Jay Ajayi has to have a big game in order for them to compete with this Pats team. It's not even the Pats defense I'm so much concerned about. It's the offense. We got to see if Rob Gronkowski suffered a concussion in the game against the Jaguars. But we just got to see if Nick Foles can recreate this game and can continue to improve. Minnesota struggled in general in this game as well. Case Keenum not looking like he did this season. To be fair, one of the picks, or the pick that he threw, was not his fault. Or his arm, as he was going and following through, his arm was hit, so it just altered the trajectory and the distance of the ball, which it was picked off. But Minnesota, just in general, struggled. The secondary didn't look nearly as dominant as it has this season. Xavier Rhodes, not so much. And the Eagles took advantage of that, and they're going to be looking to win their first ever Super Bowl on February the 7th. Now, at the same time, once again, if the Eagles want to win that game, Nick Foles has to play well. Jay Ajayi has to have a good game, but Nick Foles is going to. I have a feeling if the Eagles are going to have any shot, it's going to come down to a 2-minute drive. It's going to come down to the end, and it's going to have to be a drive orchestrated by Foles to a championship, to a touchdown. Now, at the same time, it's bothersome because I see a lot of fans on social media, on just in general, saying if Nick Foles were to lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl, what does that mean for Carson Wentz? What does that mean for Carson Wentz? It means he gets his starting job back, and Nick Foles either it goes and plays somewhere else. Thanks, Nick. You got us our first Super Bowl. We get that. But when you've got a player as special, the Eagles might have been in this situation anyway if Carson Wentz hadn't gotten hurt. But when you've got a player as special as Carson Wentz is, and you've wasted, or you used a second-round pick on him, or a number 2 pick in the first round on him, you play him. He starts, and when he was having an MVP caliber season like he was this year before he got hurt, you don't let Nick Foles, who stepped in for Carson Wentz's team, albeit led you to a Super Bowl championship. I get that, but at the same time, you don't abandon your loyalty for Carson Wentz, because once again, Wentz was going to be the reason you won a Super Bowl if you did. So I think if Philly wins a Super Bowl, they're either going to keep Nick Foles on the bench, or Nick Foles is going to go elsewhere and maybe start for a team. Now, the ultimate question is also, how short of a leash? If they keep Carson Wentz, how short of a leash does he have for Nick Foles? That's to be determined. It just depends on how well does Nick Foles play. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl but Nick Foles doesn't have a monster game, then it's not going to be that short. Now, if he goes out and has a game like he did against Minnesota, Carson Wentz is going to have a little bit of a shorter leash than he thought he may have going into next season. So, the players to look out for this week, my players to look out for this week, unfortunately, there isn't any true, there isn't really a true NFL game this week other than the Pro Bowl. That's about it. So, and they're going back to the old format, the AFC. In fact, they did it last year, and it used to be the Pro Bowl draft. Two legends would get together and they'd draft a team out of all of the players. that wasn't very popular, so they're going right back to what it used to be, the NFC versus the AFC in Orlando. The Pro Bowl Skills Challenge will be Thursday night at 9 p.m. on ESPN, so tune in to watch all your favorite players do a little bit of a skills challenge, a little bit of a different feel than the Pro Bowl, but it'll still be an interesting thing to watch. So my players to look out for this week in the Pro Bowl, my number one is going to be Jalen Ramsey for the AFC side. You're gonna a guy who just played against Tom Brady, a guy who just got knocked out again in a heartbreaker in that game in Foxborough. Does he take this game seriously, and does he really step up and actually try? Because he'll be covering the likes of Julio Jones. Does he step up to the challenge? Does he try to cover him very well, or does he falter? We don't know. Another player I'd say to look out for is Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown will have Phillip Rivers and even his quarterback, Big Ben, throwing him the ball a little bit. That'll be interesting to watch. Same thing on the NFC side. I would say watch out for both Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, because you have Drew Brees as your Pro Bowler quarterback, as the backup quarterback. So Kamara and Ingram will get reps with the familiar quarterback in the system, and it'll be interesting to see if there'll be some team chemistry going on. Will that lead to some big gains? What will that really do? And I believe that if you told me to put money, granted, this is such a hard game to predict, because really the effort levels in a Pro Bowl aren't really as high as they would be in a playoff game, obviously, because one, it's pointless. Honestly, it's an honor to get. Don't get me wrong, it's an honor to get inducted into the Pro Bowl. You got to believe that no one wants to actually be there, though, because they want to be in the championship. In fact, that's one of the things that's one of the problems I have with the NFL. I get it. The Pro Bowl doesn't do that fantastic of use anyways. If I were the NFL, I would strongly consider starting to make the Pro Bowl be after the Super Bowl, because I don't believe. I mean, it's a bunch of players that get put there. They have no desire, or they have a desire that they're honored to be there, but it just doesn't mean the same whenever you go and you've got to skip out in the Super Bowl and you can't go to the championship because you can't play in the Pro Bowl. Because your team didn't make it there. But congrats, you get to go play in the irrelevant bowl. It's an honor. It's an impressive thing to get inducted and nominated to go to. But players don't really when at the beginning of the season, if you ask a player where do they want to be, they don't say I want to be in the Pro Bowl. They say I want to be in the Super Bowl. So, and at the same time, if a player on a championship team gets inducted to the Pro Bowl, they can't play in the Pro Bowl because they are playing in the Super Bowl. What I believe you should do, give this a week of rest, go to the Super Bowl, and then after the win, do the Pro Bowl after the Super Bowl. That way, every team, every player gets a chance to make the Pro Bowl. If you go to the Super Bowl, if you go to the Super Bowl, then you get the best of both worlds. You go to the championship and you go to the Pro Bowl at the same time. In fact, that would maybe imply more effort in the Pro Bowl, more ratings, potentially more players would try, and it would be more of an honor to make the Pro Bowl. It would be even more fun to make the Pro Bowl if the championship, if it's after the championship, because then there's no real problem with people not trying the Pro Bowl. There's not a real problem with people being upset about making the Pro Bowl or indifferent about making the Pro Bowl. More All-Stars or more Pro Bowlers might play in it. For example, Larry Fitzgerald skipped out on this year. More players could possibly play in it. Now, granted, it's the same thing. Just I believe that if you made it after the Super Bowl, then more players to play. There'd be a better game to watch, and there would be potentially more ratings to go with that. And if you were telling me to pick a team, I'm going with the AFC purely because you've got a lot of playoff players on that team, so they've been playing for a good while still. They've still been fresh. They've been playing, and I think when you've got again, coming home, you got the killer bees and an offense along with the players that they have, and a defense consisting of Jalen Ramsey, AJ Boye, people like that, and Chris Boswell being a clutch kicker this year. Give me the AFC. I get it. The NFC's talented, and so is the AFC, but I like the AFC to knock off the NFC in the Pro Bowl. And that will be, I believe it is Sunday, so be sure to tune in to that. And that will be the last game, the last true NFL action before the big game on February the 7th. So that's going to do it here on Hot Takes with Holmes from Radio Free Radford. If you liked what you heard, be sure to tune in next week at 3 p.m. once again on Radio Free Radford to catch the official Hot Takes with Holmes Super Bowl preview. Again, there's the entire show. We're going to be doing the Super Bowl preview and nothing else. So that'll be, if you like football, if you like to hear us talk about football, be sure to tune in. Be sure to like our Facebook page, and we're also on YouTube. All of our broadcasts, all of this, including this one, will be uploaded to YouTube and shared onto the Facebook page. So if you just look up Hot Takes with Holmes, that's Hot Takes with Holmes on YouTube or Facebook. We're there. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and like I said, they will be trying to be uploaded the night after, so tonight at some point. And if you missed this broadcast or maybe had a friend that you thought would be interested in this broadcast, be sure to send them towards Facebook or YouTube. So, again, unfortunately, my co-host Isaiah Adair was not able to be here today, but he will be back next week. For him and myself, I'm Blake Holmes, and we'll be back next week here on Radio Free Radford.